Hey guys, so this video is a little bit outside of my regular wheelhouse and shot a little differently too. Trying a video without the green screen, but I was watching the USA play yesterday in the Women's World Cup where they absolutely rollicked Thailand 13-0. And something within that match just didn't sit right with me and sort of stuck with me all evening until I just sort of gave myself up to that feeling and allowed myself to dive into it here. So, we'll look at a few examples of other drubbings by both men and women at the World Cup, including defending champions Germany against Argentina at the 2007 Women's World Cup, and how those teams conducted themselves in order to see if the US team really did do something out of the ordinary with their celebrations, or if it was just status quo. We'll also look at the reactions from other media outlets, the media, and include all of the context to really hash this out and try to be as fair as possible with it. Now, let me start by saying this, because I know people aren't going to bother even listening to the video, will drop a dislike before hearing what's said, and will just comment how running up the score isn't a crime. I noticed a ton of people on social media saying that they had a problem with the state scoring 13 goals. In other words, absolutely running up the score against a clearly inferior opposition. And all that I'll say to that is that the states don't need to apologize for scoring so many goals against their opposition. In fact, had the United States stopped scoring and started playing keep away, that would be more disrespectful in my opinion. It would be more demeaning to Thailand if the USA had started playing below their ability and wasting the clock. Showing mercy in this case doesn't do any good. And by the way, the point of the sport is to score goals, and especially in a tournament setting, you need to maximize the amount you score, especially when you have another powerhouse in women's football in Sweden in your group. Now, of course, 13 should be more than enough goals, and they don't do them any good outside of the group stage, but it's not only the goals and goal difference that are important, but keeping that type of intensity and carrying it forward into your next match requires that you don't take your foot off of the gas. So I don't fault the Americans at all for scoring as many as they did and continuing to play at a high standard no matter the score. You have to do that in a tournament as big as the World Cup. I have no issues with that. People getting offended by that? Pfft, no, I'm joking. Feel how you want. But the other aspect is the celebrations that followed once the score had reached 7, 8, and eventually double digits. Now, part of the reason as to why this debate blew up on social media, at least I think, is down to former Canadian internationals who are covering the World Cup for TSN, a channel in Canada, voicing their disapproval of the American celebrations. In case you missed it, here's a snippet.
Megan Rapinoe has scored countless goals on the international stage. She was celebrating like she had her first. We can understand if it was a first goal like a Mallory Pugh, but when you're Alex Morgan too and you're counting out your goals, it was just unacceptable.
Goals 8, 9, 10, the way they were doing is really unnecessary.
For me, it's disrespectful, it's disgraceful.
Personally, when I watched this, I was watching it live. I'm Canadian, by the way, as you guys already know. This kind of reeked of sour grapes and a bit of anti-American vibes to me. I mean, the host even picked up on it later and said, not to sound anti-American or anything, or something along those lines. So I think they could partially tell how they were coming off, and they took it a bit far with calling it disgraceful and classless or whatever. But they did clear it up the next day, saying that they only had a problem with how the veterans carried themselves, like Lloyd, Morgan, Rapinoe, and they claimed they didn't have any problems with the girls that scored their first World Cup goals like Horan, Pugh, Lavelle, and Horan, Pugh, Lavelle, Morgan, Rapinoe, Lloyd. Mewis. Sorry. Mewis is another one that scored her first World Cup goals. There's so many of them that one was bound to slip through the claps. Claps? Traps. Cracks? What? Slip through the cracks. There we go. God. So, I too didn't love the matter of which the veteran player celebrated once the score had reached 9, 10, 11, 12, 13-0. It was all extremely overindulgent, and while I wouldn't go as far as to say that it was classless and disgusting, as some have said, I do think that it was extremely unnecessary and just left a bad taste in the mouth. And it wasn't just Canadians that had issues with the celebrations late in the game. Former American international and current pundit Taylor Twellman said that the way the US celebrated goal number 9 left a, quote, sour taste in my mouth. And Max Breto said, quote, I would tone down the celebration on the 9th goal, but that's just me. And The United States are the defending world champions, the best women's team in the world right now, where they all play professionally in either the States or abroad and make their living doing so. Thailand, on the other hand, while they aren't the worst ranked team at this tournament, as they sit in, I believe it's 34th place currently in the FIFA World Rankings, and hey, they even made it to the last World Cup in 2015 and won a match in the process, the gulf in class between them and the USA cannot be understated. And some context here is sort of important, I guess. This was the World Cup veterans celebrating hard against these Thai players who are part-time professionals. To me, it just seems a little bit off, you know? It's too much celebration. Because, I mean, according to this article, the Thai players get compensation in the form of bonuses for qualifying for the World Cup, which were doubled, very nice of them, as well as a job. Here's what the article says. Players on the women's national team also are employed by Nguyen Phan Lam Sam's company, Muang Thai Insurance, a team spokesman said. If there is a long period without training or matches, the players work as sales representatives for the company, the spokesman said. During the season, a regular paycheck from the insurance company allows players to concentrate on soccer without having to find other jobs. So they make a living as a pro, but they still have to work for the insurance company, so it's semi-pro, I guess. And it's by no means at the same level of pro-iness, there's a new word for you, that the US women are at. So again, by all means, score as many goals as you like, but as professional football players, you should have a little more class or respect for your opposition and how you conduct yourself once the score gets to 6 or 7 goals, let alone to double digits for the Galacticos as they beat up on the part-time professionals who work for an insurance company in between national team training camps and competitions. Now, let's look at a couple comparisons. The US had played Thailand before 3 years ago in a friendly, and they won 9-0, and they barely celebrated each goal. Context is important though, I agree with you, a friendly doesn't come close to the World Cup, so that's not a good comparison. People on social media brought up Germany destroying Brazil in 2014 7-1 a lot actually, saying how nobody batted an eye at that because it's a men's team. But again, context is important, and Germany and Brazil are on a level playing field as far as football prestige goes in the men's game, and even so, their celebrations were less and less intense as the more goals went in. Look at Schürrle here, scoring the 6th.
Kadira, back into Lam, square, 6-0 it is!
Aha, counterpoint though. Then Schürrle scored the 7th goal and celebrated arrogantly in front of the already devastated Brazilian fans. Not cool, man. Unnecessary, and should have taken note from his own earlier celebration, which was extremely muted. But let's get to another example that's in the same sphere, I guess, as the American victory over Thailand. So this is from the Women's World Cup in 2007. Defending champions Germany are taking on Argentina, who even to this day are still not a good side in women's football. The fact that they even got a draw this year against Japan was considered a massive achievement for them. And so let's look at how the Germans, remember, defending champions at the time, celebrated back in 2007 in what was a record margin of victory at the time.
Birgit Prinz, 8:0, ihr dritter Treffer und wieder schreibt sie Geschichte. Wieder Sandra Smisek, ein Traumtor zum 9:0. Wegbereiter wieder einmal Kerstin Gareth. 8 Minuten später das erfolgreiche Duo wieder am Werke. 10:0, auch Sandra Smisek heute mit 3 Treffern.
That 9-0 celebration is quite different from the States. And remember, Rapinoe has scored at the World Cup before back in 2011. So as a veteran who has scored more than 40 plus goals in the national setup, and as the captain, this pirouette and studs up celebration is a little overindulgent for my taste. At 9-0 against a team like Thailand, who is so clearly not even close to your own level. Just as Argentina was so clearly not even close to Germany's level in 2007. And they celebrated more appropriately, in my opinion. Appropriately meaning more respectfully. And to the people using the argument, oh, nobody would say anything if it was a men's team, I really don't subscribe to that. Now that may be true of some people, I do realize that chauvinists exist and sexism exists in the world, and definitely in the world of sports. It's rife in the world of sports. But I also believe that if France, as defending world champions, were playing their opening group match at the 2022 World Cup against a team that barely qualified and were part-time professionals like, I don't know, Tahiti, let's say, as they got smashed 10-0 against defending champion Spain back in 2013's Confederations Cup. That's a friendly tournament though. But anyways, let's say Antoine Griezmann and Paul Pogba scored the 12th and 13th goals against Tahiti and celebrated in that nature, you know, counting all the goals they've scored on one hand like Alex Morgan did and doing big choreographed celebrations on the sidelines. I'm pretty sure that people would roast them for it and call them disrespectful as they're full-fledged professional players and world champions versus people who are basically part-time. And they're celebrating as they bury them further and further into the ground and embarrass them further and further. For me, men's or women's competition doesn't matter. Professionalism, class, and respect for your opponent are the same and expected in the men's and women's game and should be expected of professional players no matter who's playing. So I don't know. I don't love seeing this, the rubbing it in the face of a clearly inferior opponent. And coming from the world champions and the leaders for future generations of professional women's footballers and as role models and how a professional should conduct themselves, I just wonder what kind of message it sends to them. The actions of the senior players don't really vibrate with grace or humility, but whatever the message was that they were sending, this Thai girl received it loud and clear with each conga line and leg slide celebration thing. So I guess that's what my opinion boils down to. So the ladies scoring their first World Cup goals for the US women, you know, the pews, etc., they get a pass. But the veterans like Morgan, Rapinoe, and Lloyd don't, in my book. Take note from the 2007 German squad that dismantled Argentina without the pitch side shenanigans and butt slide celebrations, backside, whatever it was, a well-executed slide, 10 out of 10 from the Canadian judge here, but really not needed. So yeah, maybe I'm a bleeding heart white knight guy. Stop. You've dishonored Thailand. Shame on thee. Maybe I do come across as those things, but I mean, that's fine if you think that. That's just my opinion on how the senior players conducted themselves. Rapinoe says their only crime was an explosion of joy. If you want to call it that, then I guess that's a crime that defending champions Germany didn't commit back in 2007 against Argentina. But hey man, I guess in the end, we're all different and to each their own. But I'm curious to hear what you guys think, all things considered. No problem with it, big problem with it, don't really care either way. Let me know. Thanks for watching and take care.